Good Thursday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Happy NFL schedule release day to you. 8 o'clock tonight. It becomes official. The schedule, you'll find out who the Browns play and what week. We'll take a look at some leaked games that could be in the offing at 8 o'clock tonight. A little later in the show, Casey Kinnamon will be joining us from Dog Pound Daily. Let's begin by taking a look. So we're relatively certain the Browns will open up the season against the Carolina Panthers on the road. As you see, this is from Joe Person. He is a Carolina reporter. They are allowed to report their first home game a little early. So it will be the Browns against the Panthers in week 1. And then we have found that there's some pretty accurate reports coming out that the Browns will have a Monday night game, week 8, which would be Halloween against the Bengals at home. So Joe Burrow and the Bengals at home Monday night, Halloween, week 8. Now, we backtrack and we mentioned the Panthers to open things up, and that would seem to be a relatively favorable matchup for the Browns, who are 0-16-1. No wins, 16 losses, and a tie in openers since 2005. Last win was back in 2004. It was 20-3 over the Ravens. But 0-16-1. This year, the opener will be against the Panthers in Carolina. With that, let's welcome in Quincy Carrier. So, Quincy, are they throwing the Browns a little softball, being the NFL, opening with the Panthers and potentially Sam Darnold?
Yeah, I mean, you would hope, right? But with the Browns on opening day, I've learned that there is no such thing as a softball when it comes to them, right? We thought the Tennessee Titans would be a softball in 2019, and that turned out to be the hardest of hard balls that this franchise has gotten hit with since coming back in 99, right? They got blown out by like 40 points. It was demoralizing. I was at that game. I remember the excitement. Oh, we got Odell. Baker's coming off his rookie year. He's going to be great. And then we just got washed in that game. So, now I don't know. I'm not going to make any grand declarations. By the way, that wasn't even Ryan Tannehill, Tennessee Titans. That was Marcus Mariota, Tennessee Titans, that did that to the Cleveland Browns. Remember, they traded for Tannehill at the end of that year. So that was a bad team that did that to him. So there are no guarantees with the opener. I am not going to play games with the opener. Look, Carolina, if that is the opener at Carolina, it's still a road game. We don't know what the status is going to be of certain players. And, you know, we still got to prepare very diligently for that, because you don't want to be the one team that Sam Darnold plays well against, or, you know, potentially that could be Baker Mayfield starting for the Panthers. Who knows? You know, we still don't know what that situation is going to turn into. So I am optimistic about it, but I know better than to guarantee anything about that opener from what, over 27 years of being a Browns fan. I just know better than that.
It has not been a kind way. So you look at it, and they haven't been 1-0 since 2004. Take a look at Mike Rimmer's tweet. So this is another Carolina Panthers beat reporter. So the first test for their first-round pick, their left tackle, is going to be Myles Garrett. So yeah, guess what, Rook? It only gets easier from here is the message.
I mean, there's any rookie pass rusher that has to go and play the AFC North, it's rough, right? Because you have Trey Hendrickson on the Bengals, who's a pretty good sack master, underrated in his own right. Then you have T.J. Watt in the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then you play Myles Garrett, right? Like, in any order in which you have to play any of those guys, it's just ridiculous, because those are two of the best pass rushers and defensive players, period, in football, in T.J. Watt and Myles Garrett. So, yeah, Mike, Okonkwo's going to have his hands full. Look, there ain't nothing in college that's going to prepare you for no Myles Garrett. Like, I know you're going to try. It's going to be difficult. Maybe he's a great left tackle already, and he can hold his own. But it's just so much a young player, no matter how talented, can do against Myles Garrett, of all people. You know what I mean? Like, there's just a level of finesse and skill that is required to block Myles Garrett. Now, I would hope that Carolina wouldn't do something goofy like leave that man one-on-one with Myles Garrett. But let's not forget, this is Matt Rule that coaches that team, and Matt Rule, not known for great protection schemes. You know what I mean? So circle this one. I bet Myles Garrett, if this is the opener, has this one circled in red Sharpie, because he's trying to get that sack record. that he did not get last year.
Yeah, and the rookie's getting a master class week 1, so good luck with that. All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one kind of about the schedule and some questions about, perception of games.
Hi, this is Rico. I'm just calling in regard to prime time games. It's just a matter of opinion, really. Do you think that Sunday night or Monday night games are more prestigious? I feel like Sunday night games are more prestigious now than Monday night. Just a matter of opinion, really. Thank you. Bye.
And as always, appreciate all of the voicemails. What do you think, Quincy? What do you think is more prestigious, Sunday night, Monday night?
Yeah, I don't know. It's at the point now there's so many national TV games that if you just get one that's not on a Thursday, you feel pretty. I honestly feel like 4:15 on CBS is like the big game feel, right? Because, you grow up watching the Browns. It means you've watched a lot of AFC football, which just means that you've watched a ton of CBS football. So that would feel like the big game to me when you have like that CBS A team there that makes it feel like it's the right time of day at that 4:30 window. That's what a big game feels like to me. The night games, they all kind of meld together now. Joe Buck, Troy Aikman being on that night game. I don't know. I've seen them do Thursday night football too, so it's like it's not that big of a jump to me. Sunday night football, though, you don't get Sunday night football if you're a bad team, right? Unless you're the Cowboys or the Steelers. Like, you don't get Sunday night football unless you're a good team for the most part. So that's always going to be what I would presume would be the number one game of the week, should be that Sunday night game. Monday night football, it's kind of weird now. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much football during the week. You get to Monday, and you're like, oh, yeah, there is Monday night football. It doesn't mean what it used to. Sometimes we have double headers and everything else. It just gets all confusing. But, yeah, I would say for me, it would probably be like the Sunday night football game's the most prestigious, no matter who's calling the game, just because it's Sunday night, right? It's the football night, and it's at night, and it's the night game. And then there's that 4:15 CBS game, which always, seems like a high quality broadcast.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Sunday night had a little bit of the cachet with Al Michaels and Collinsworth, and Mike Tirico is, heck, he calls the Olympics, so I'm sure he'll be fine on Sunday night football. Let me ask you this: how many primetime games do you foresee this Browns team getting this year?
That's an interesting question. It could be 5. It could be none. Well, it could be 2, right? I think it'll probably get like 3, right? I think the approach for the national media with the Cleveland Browns has been, let's wait and see, right? We'll give them a couple early because it's a big enough fan base, but let's wait and see how this team shakes out, because I think a lot of networks felt like they got burnt in 2019, where the Browns had like 5 national TV games and then they stunk, and they had to like change and rotate out all those national TV games, which is pretty hectic for the schedule and everything else. So I think, the Browns, until they like make a real playoff run again, they'll probably just get 3, and then people will wait to see if they believe in that team. You know what I mean? And then it will build on top of that if they have continued success. But I would say 3.
The other thing that kind of factors into that is the whole Deshaun Watson situation. Does the NFL, if there's no resolution to that, do they just kind of want to keep that off into the the local market? That's another thing that I'm sure is going on in the NFL offices when they're looking at the Browns.
Yeah, but here's the thing about that, though. If the Browns are as good as people think they could be, it ain't going to matter. What time they play. They're going to be talked about no matter what. And Deshaun Watson, just by the virtue of him existing with the controversy that exists around him, he's going to have, eyeballs on him. So there's kind of a question on, like, how much can you really avoid this whole thing when he's a massive star anyway? Like, imagine in this situation we're surrounding like a LeBron James or something like that. There's only so much hiding him you could do. He's a huge star at the end of the day. That's the same thing with Watson. Watson is a huge star. People were paying attention to him before this whole situation. More people are paying attention to him now, not for like football reasons or anything, but they're paying attention to him. And whatever time he plays, I mean, it might just be better they just schedule the Browns like a regular team and not try to keep that in factor, because it's just, if you obviously try to keep them off national TV, that's just going to create more conversation about it. than it wouldn't if you just gave them, I would say if you just give them 3 national TV games, nobody's going to be outraged or about that on either side of the aisle. So I think that's just what they're going to do with that.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we turn our attention to some wide receivers and some free agent targets for the Browns. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier. So Jarvis Landry, still a free agent, tweets this out. Live and learn from yesterday, that was. When you look at this, Quincy, there were some reports that the Browns offered him a 1-year deal. Sounds like it was not what he was going to make, which is 15-16, but more than 10. And he's probably not going to get to that point at this point in time in free agency. What do you? Always hard to figure out Jarvis's tweets. What do you think Live and Learn was getting at?
I have no idea. We look at these tweets sometimes, and it's like they also got other stuff going on in football, right? He might be subtweeting somebody else. There's a lot that can be going on Twitter that might not necessarily give us a window into any football thing. He might have just learned something about raising his daughter, and he's like, hey, live and learn. He decided to tweet it. It could be anything. I don't think Jarvis is coming back because it just don't seem like the motivation is there on the Cleveland Browns side to really make that happen. It doesn't seem like Jarvis is willing to take the pay cut, or it doesn't seem like he has to take the pay cut necessarily. The Cleveland Browns are offering him at this point. So, I think they're going to be heading their separate ways. I don't know what the tweet means. Sometimes it could just mean nothing. And dude was just tweeting, right? I mean, we think about how little we think about it when we tweet, right? Like, because I'll just be tweeting sometimes. I don't be thinking about nothing. Imagine if I was doing that and then people were like, hey, man, did you hear this tweet? And then, trying to make moves off my career about this tweet.
You'd be doing it more then. If people are trying to figure it out, you're like, this is kind of fun. I'm going to do this here.
It's like trying to put a puzzle together blindfolded. Like, we really don't know what we're doing right now, but we just tried. We need something.
All right. So predicting 10 remaining NFL free agent signings. This is from ESPN.com's Bill Barnwell. He has Jarvis Landry headed to the Baltimore Ravens, where he has been linked. And this is a new one. Ndamukong Suh coming to the Browns. And you see the thought, add a veteran defensive tackle to the rotation. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, man, we're going to lead the league in penalties, but I would love it every second. Putting Perrion Winfrey next to Ndamukong Suh, next to Myles Garrett. And Jadeveon Clowney on the other side, potentially. Could you imagine? how terrified you would be as a quarterback. Like, not even worried if you're going to get sacked. Some of that stuff is like, this is going to be one unnecessary roughness penalty. And that might be enough to regulate some stuff. You know what I mean? Like, that would be the most fearsome 4 guys you could put up there. And it's not all because of the tape, right? Because Ndamukong Suh at this point in his career is not the Ndamukong Suh of old, but his name is Ndamukong Suh. You know what I mean? Like, there is stuff that comes with that. Perrion Winfrey, high energy, wants to get back to the quarterback. We know how Myles Garrett feels about quarterbacks, and then Jadeveon Clowney, he's not that far off from that. So that's just a terrifying combination for quarterbacks, which makes me smile. So I would be all for it if they brought in Ndamukong Suh. We're going to have to deal with some penalties. Some drives are going to get extended that don't need to be extended, but the quarterbacks ain't going to be like, oh yeah, we played the Browns this week. No, they're going to be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, right? I don't think Lamar Jackson coming back from Dukian. If you got that front four,
the pocket,
you know what I mean?
Pocket ain't going to be a comfortable place. It is not going to be a comfortable place in the pocket.
You know what I mean?
All right, here's another one. 5 remaining free agent targets for the Browns. This is from Sports Illustrated. They say wide receiver Will Fuller, cornerback Chris Harris Jr., safety Trey Boston, defensive tackle Akeem Hicks, and edge rusher Jadeveon Clowney. So Fuller, Harris, Boston, Hicks, Clowney. Give me a couple of those. How many of those you like for the Browns? How many you think are realistic?
I think the only one they're probably going to grab here is Clowney. I think as much as I would love them to go aggressive in that defensive tackle room, I think they feel like they're fine with Taven Bryan, Sheldon Day, and whichever young guy in Togiai and Jordan Elliott that wins out that competition with Perrion. They feel like they can get him in at least rotationally. If not, he can be a starter. So, yeah, I think they're fine there to D-tackle in their odds. I don't see them adding another wide receiver or definitely not another secondary player, right? Like, I would hope, like, my fingers are crossed just because of the old Browns fan in me that they could bring back Joe Hayden, work something out, have him, play inside and out a little bit. But even then, that's kind of far-fetched. I think Clowney's the only one where you go, hey, they need an edge. And Clowney makes sense. And Clowney was on the team last year. I think that's the one that makes sense to make the move on. And I would hope that's going to happen sooner than later.
All right, I know you've addressed this on your YouTube show as well, but I want to get your thoughts. Did the Browns win the offseason?
I think they did a sufficient job of addressing all of their holes, right? When we ended the season, what were we all complaining about? All right, we need more defensive line depth. You did some things there, right? You brought in Chase Winovich. Hopefully you bring back Clowney. That part of it isn't clear. You drafted Perrion. You drafted Alex Wright. You drafted Isaiah Thomas. So you brought some new bodies into the room. Okay, not the greatest job in the world. Like, you didn't overwhelm that position like you have in other position groups. But, hey, you did your job there. Then we can flip it to the offensive side. Well, let's go to special teams, actually. You go to special teams. And that was a huge concern. What was wrong with special teams last year? Everything was wrong with special teams, right? The punts were bad, the kicks were worse, and the kick returning was awful, right? So what did you do? You got a new kick returner, you got a new punter, and you drafted the kicker in the 4th round. Now, you'll see if that works out, but hey, you drafted the kicker. When you drafted the kicker, hopefully he's good. If he's not, then that's a problem. Now you go to the offensive side of the ball, and you can't say they weren't aggressive, right? They had a pass-catching crisis. They lost their best receiver during the season, and then, they were going to lose a couple of their other pass catchers during the offseason, potentially also losing David Njoku. They retained David Njoku. They traded for Amari Cooper. They drafted David Bell. And then, they also were aggressive in upgrading the quarterback position, which was also the biggest concern coming out of the season, right? When we were like, hey, we don't know if that quarterback is enough, if Baker is enough to get us to where we want. So we have to look at other options. And also, if we can't get another option, we have to get upgrades. I think they upgraded the backup position with Jacoby Brissett, and they upgraded the starting quarterback position. So in that sense, right, when you looked at everything that we were complaining about at the end of the season, everything that we wanted to change at the end of the season about how this season in 2021 went, they went and were pretty aggressive for the most part about addressing those concerns. I mean, when you trade for a dude, 3 first-round picks for a guy, and give him $250 million, or $230 million guaranteed, then, that you can't say that's not aggressive in trying to solve a problem. So I would say they were very aggressive. Look, if they failed this year, it isn't because of a lack of trying. It is more or less it just didn't work. But they most definitely did all they could when it comes to aggressiveness to fill the holes in this roster.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, talk a little bit more about the Browns' passing attack. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
Thanks for buying a fishing license. I want you to picture all of the great things this simple purchase does. Like building public boat ramps, keeping local waters clean, and maintaining a healthy fish population.
What's Mom doing?
When you buy a fishing license, you do a lot. Every dollar protects and maintains your local waterways for future generations to enjoy. Visit takemefishing.org.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the Browns passing game.
Hi, this is Mike from Masswood. I do believe Deshaun Watson will make these receivers much better. A good quarterback will do wonders for guys' careers. Guys get big contracts. Cooper, he had such a solid guy in Matt Ryan. He comes here, it's like all he does is fall down.
As always, we appreciate all of the voicemails. What about Quincy? Do you expect the receiving core to get a big boost from Deshaun Watson?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's why you pay the quarterback the most money, right? Because they can have the most impact on the most aspects of the game. And that's one of the parts that you want him to have an impact in, right? Is, hey, help these receivers be a little better, right? And what I mean by that is, if you're a receiver and Deshaun Watson's your quarterback, he is so accurate and so on time most of the time that all you have to worry about is running a clean route. You don't got to worry about adjusting to the ball. You don't got to worry about getting extra open and flashing open just so you can make sure the quarterback sees you so you can do your arm thing. All you got to do is run your route, count to three, look up, and there's the ball, right? Like, that's all you got to worry about. And when that's all you have to worry about as a wide receiver, that's where you see a lot of guys shine, when you can have that trust in the system. When you don't have that, then it takes a little bit extra, right? And that's kind of been some of the problems, some of the inconsistency at the quarterback position. The one thing I'll give Baker Mayfield is when he was good, he was elevating some wide receiver play, right? Because he didn't have the greatest wide receivers in the world in 2018 nor in 2020, especially at the tail end of 2020. And that kind of helped out because he was accurate. He was getting the ball on time. And when he was on time, on target, those wide receivers looked pretty good. Same thing with Deshaun Watson, even though Deshaun Watson does this on a more consistent basis. If he's on time, he's on target, it's going to be great. So, yeah, I would expect this to make just the lives of everybody easier.
And again, I know you addressed this on your show as well, and Quincy has a YouTube show. Google it. You can find it, subscribe to it. Which of the Browns' young wide receivers is due for a big year in your mind in 2022?
You know, when I think about it, part of me wants to go to Donovan Peoples-Jones, but Donovan Peoples-Jones, the biggest issue I have with him is that weird stuff happens sometimes when he touches the ball. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but sometimes just weird stuff happens when he touches the ball. Sometimes it's his fault, sometimes it's not. But like, I would say out of like every 10 targets, one of them going to be weird, right? And I don't know if that's going to be something that Watson's going to trust as much as somebody like a David Bell, who we got to figure out if the speed is a real issue in the NFL, right? And we'll figure that out in camp. But if that's not an issue and he can get open versus Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome, he'll be able to get open versus anybody. And if he is, then he's the kind of guy that Deshaun Watson thrives off of, right? DeAndre Hopkins was not the fastest wide receiver in the world, but he was a crisp route runner. And he was where he was supposed to be at all times, right? That's the thing with Amari Cooper, right? Amari Cooper is going to be where he's supposed to be at all times. And that's what David Bell brings to the table. He will be where he needs to be. And if you are where you're supposed to be, Deshaun's going to find you, whether you open or not. So I think David Bell, somebody who also, you look at his tape, look, the measurables weren't great, but you saw him really attack a lot of 50-50 balls out there in Purdue. So I would say that it would probably be David Bell to me, who's going to have a big season here. I wouldn't be surprised if the rookie came out and played a significant role. I don't know if he starts, but he would play a significant role. He might get anywhere between 500 to 800 receiving yards, which is tremendous for a rookie taking that pick 99.
So here's another thing about him. Signs a contract. Tom Pelissaro tweets this out. So signed his deal, 4 years, almost $5 million in the contract as he signed that deal today, under contract, good to go. With the way things are now, it's kind of a formality. But let me ask you this, and you've mentioned David Bell. How different do you think this offense looks with Deshaun Watson? Do you expect, the RPOs? That's something Watson does pretty well. What are some of the differences you think Kevin Stefanski has in the works for the Browns offense?
It's going to be the same offense, but it's like when you get the premium tier on HBO or on Hulu, right? You unlock more stuff, right? It's the same shows that you can always go to on the regular tier. Sometimes there's ads on the base version, right? But then you pay that extra $6.99 and then all of a sudden you got no ads and then you get all the premium stuff, right? All the movies and all that. You can do all this extra stuff. That's what Deshaun Watson and his offense is going to be. It's going to be the same offense. It's coming out of the same base. You're going to see some of the similar concepts that we saw last year, but they will be able to add the plus stuff, right? The RPO stuff every once in a while. Maybe some trick plays, right? Maybe they're able to get further along in camp. And this is the thing people don't think about, right? With Deshaun Watson, as good and as accomplished as he is, it's going to be easier to just get through the offense in training camp. So maybe that means that by the end of camp, you are much further along because you're not repeating stuff or trying to fix somebody's feet or trying to tell somebody where their eyes should be in this play or trying to tell them how to read the play, right? We're not spending so much time on that we could just move through this playbook faster, which means that they'll have more of it unlocked by opening day. Which means that you'll just see more stuff out the get-go. So, yeah, it's going to be basically the same offense, but with the plus, right? It's more in it. You get you can go to the movie and see the Marvel movie and pay your $10, or you can get Disney Plus to see the Marvel movies and the TV shows, right? Now we get into extra stuff when it comes to the Browns offense. So you will see some extra tricks, extra gadgets, extra dimensions in there. And that might just be simply because, one, Deshaun Watson unlocks it because he has a more varied skill set than Baker Mayfield did. And also, when it comes to just the ability to we know Deshaun Watson can read defenses, and he has no problem doing that. So they're not going to be so stuck and spending so much resources on teaching him what he needs to see, what we want him to do, because they don't worry about that with Deshaun, right? That's why you paid him the money. You don't have to worry about the pre-snap stuff with him. So we could do this. He can figure it out. Boom, let's move to the next play. And that's why certain teams, right, when Tom Brady was on the Patriots, they always looked fine on opening week most of the time because it's like they got through the playbook, right, during training camp. They weren't hung up or getting behind because of certain things with the quarterback position. Now we have that similar situation. So even though it's a new offense to him, Deshaun's good enough at just the fundamentals and the knowing the IQ of football that you really aren't going to spend so much time trying to nail down 15 plays. Like, that won't take as much time, hopefully, and they're able to get through this faster, which can result in just more being in the playbook.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside to take another timeout, other side of the break. Another national perspective about just what Deshaun Watson will bring to the Browns. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier. We've been talking about Deshaun Watson and how big of a difference he'll make for this offense. Here's Marcus Spears, former NFL player from ESPN's NFL Live, on what Watson will mean to this Browns offense.
It could eventually be the most devastating offense in the league. And we know Deshaun's talent, and obviously we got to see if he can continue to carry that on from what we saw in Houston. But him getting on the outside. Listen, y'all, I watched Baker Mayfield with this offense roll out at times on boots and naked, and he was wide open, had all of the field in the world. And when his receivers were covered, he didn't have that second gear to take off and complete with his legs. Well, now you have that element. You have an arm, you have a better arm, in my opinion, in Deshaun Watson. You got a guy that can do both. And when you look at this Cleveland Browns offense over time, like how we've watched them, Kareem Hunt, obviously, Nico just talked about Nick Chubb, but there were so many other opportunities that were limited, I believe, because of Baker Mayfield and the type of quarterback he is and athlete he is. So now you add Deshaun Watson into this offense, everybody benefits from it, but you also add an athletic quarterback. When he rolls out, usually he's going to be staring at 10 to 15 yards of wide open football field to take off on.
Quincy Carrier, what do you think? It's a former defensive lineman telling you what he sees with the difference being.
Yeah, defensive players usually don't be lying, right? When when they tell you something, right? When John Johnson tweets during the game, man, we really need to run the football more. That's kind of revealing in ways that more people wanted to see at the time, right? And that's not just a dude talking about, that's your safety telling you that goes up against your quarterback every day. And it's like, nah, man, let me tell you, don't throw that ball as much, right? Like that tells you a lot. So the defensive players, they kind of know on a different level what they fear. Deshaun Watson is the guy that they fear a lot, right? Because the one thing, if you talk to all defensive coordinators in the NFL, they will have a healthy fear of a pocket passer, right? Like Tom Brady's always going to put the fear of everybody into him because he's Tom Brady. But if you start talking to them about like Lamar Jackson and how they defend him, they start getting headaches about that because there ain't nothing you could really game plan about those things, right? Cam Newton in his prime, it's not game plannable what you could do against Cam Newton, right? So that element that Deshaun brings, that he's a dynamic runner. Now, he's not Lamar or anything like that, but he is a dynamic enough runner to where you're going to have some hesitations about just playing straight two-man on him. And, you know, that's going to give defensive coordinators headaches. on a team that's full of guys who can give you headaches, right? One of the things that give defensive coordinators headaches about the Browns is that they have Chubb and Hunt. If they're on, ain't nothing you could do about that. Now you add Watson to the mix. Yeah, this is going to be a tough team to game plan against because it's like there's only so much you could do against that, right? If you want to go man to counter the run, okay, cool. They're going to play action, boot the other way around. And what are you going to do if you get caught with your pants around your ankles and it's not Baker Mayfield throwing the football or potentially running it? It's Deshaun Watson throwing it to Amari Cooper. That's a whole different set of problems that defensive coordinators have to worry about now that did not exist a little bit ago.
All right. Again, this is from Quincy's YouTube show, this topic. And, again, you can subscribe to it here on YouTube. Biggest concerns for the Browns in 2022. When you look at this, you go, man, if this happens, we could be in for another 2021.
Ultimately, I don't know if it gets bad as 2021, right? Because a lot of that had to do with how bad the quarterback play got. I don't know if Deshaun Watson ever gets to that bad level, right? Now, we could get to that level of like Deshaun Watson gets injured or he doesn't get to play this year or something happens. Knock on wood, hope that doesn't happen. All right, so the biggest concern to me is like, okay, I feel all right about the offensive line right now because Jedrick Wills, I think he's fine. I think people make too much out of how perceivingly bad they thought he was because of like some PFF scores. He's been fine, guys. I don't know what the big concern is. So I'm not really concerned about Jedrick, but you look at Joe Bitonio, he's starting to get old. You know what I mean? Especially for a guard. Now, some guards play forever, but he's starting to get old. So you worry about him a little bit. Nick Harris, you know, we have high hopes for him. He played well at the end of last year, but ultimately he's going to be a first-year starter, so you got concerns about that. Wyatt Teller's been fine, but he kind of tapered off a little bit last year. So you're kind of worried about, was that something to do with what was going on last year, or was Wyatt Teller starting to get figured out a little bit and he's not going to be as dominant as he was in 2020 again? You worry about that a little bit. Jack Conklin, though, is where this whole thing gets a little bit odd, right? Because it's like, yeah, Jack Conklin is the starter and he will start week 1, but we don't know if he's going to start week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5 because he always gets injured, right? He's been injured almost his entire stay with the Cleveland Browns. I think he's played, 15 games in 2 years? So you have to plan for that. So it's going to be James Hudson in there for at least a portion of the season, right? So if you look at it that way, now you got James Hudson, you got Jedrick Wills, and you have Nick Harris. 3 of your offensive linemen are a little bit more inexperienced than what you would like to have out there. That could be a concern, especially when they're adjusting to a different style of quarterback who might break the pocket a little bit more, right? This is where you get a lot of illegal receiver downfield because a lineman just broke downfield because they thought he was going to scramble when he was trying to throw the ball downfield. This is where you get a lot of those situations where some of the rotations aren't right, some of the shifts aren't right on the offensive line, especially with a new center, right? Because the center is going to have to direct traffic on the offensive line. So maybe some of that stuff gets there. Now, having Deshaun Watson helps because you trust Deshaun Watson with protections more than you would trust most quarterbacks. So maybe that helps out there. But yeah, that offensive line, I would say, hey, you know, Deshaun could do a lot in making that offensive line look better. But I would say the one thing you could be critical of Deshaun is that he has not done a lot to make his offensive lines look as good as they should have in some years when he was with the Texans, because he had a decent offensive line there in 2020 and in 2019, I think. But, you know, he just, especially post-Tunsil trade, and some of the things that he does, right, holding on to the ball an extra bit of time could be a little bit of a problem when it comes to him putting his offensive line in the best place. So that whole combination of variables, that's what would concern me, and that would make the level of difficulty of scoring much higher. They will still be able to score, mind you, but those touchdowns are going to come with multiple 3rd and long conversions and make it take more time and more effort to score, which is ultimately going to keep them out of more games.
So within the last 15, 20 minutes, Adam Schefter has tweeted this. Another one of the Browns rookies has signed. They reached an agreement with their 3rd-round pick, Alex Wright, 4 years, $5.2 million. Drew Rosenhaus is his agent. So Browns rookie minicamp gets underway tomorrow. And I know you also addressed this topic. How do you think the Browns use Martin Emerson and Perrion Winfrey this year? When you look at them, how do they fit into that defense that Joe Woods wants to play?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, right? Because Joe Woods doesn't want his players to play multiple positions in their rookie year, especially at the beginning. Look at how he did JOK, where he pretty much had him play one position early on. Now, when you look at Martin Emerson, some people envision him as a boundary corner. Some people see him as more of a slot. I'm in more of the campaign of he's a slot. And how do I feel? Why do I feel like he's a slot? because you didn't trade Greedy Williams when you drafted Martin Emerson. You traded Troy Hill, which tells me that's who you wanted to clear up that spot for, is Martin Emerson in that slot. So I think they envisioned him as a slot. He's going to play some of that inside. I would worry about putting him on boundaries too much. I think you will see him on the boundary maybe in the red zone a little bit more often, right? Because there's less room to get beat over top, and Martin can get beat over top. I mean, Jamison Williams, this one play again for him in Alabama, he just cooked that man over top and just gapped him completely to score. So that was a little bit of a concern there for me when you look at his long speed and his recovery ability. But inside, I think he'll be fine. He's a long guy, and those guys can really do well in the slot because they're going to be close enough that if you need them to go up against a tight end, they can. So that's going to be all interesting. Perion Winfrey, you put him at 3 tech next to Myles Garrett, and you don't think about that again. Like, that's all you need to do. Put him at 3 tech next to Myles Garrett, and just let that thing happen. Now, there might be a situation, you don't want to put him next to Clowney if Clowney is back, just because Clowney likes to rip inside a lot, right? And a dude like Perion, he's going to do a lot of bulls and a lot of like a spin to his strong shoulder. So they're going to collide a lot if you put him next to Jadeveon. But if you put him next to Myles, who likes to go out and bull, then you just let Perion handle that gap right there. You'll be fine. I think you just put him at 3 tech, you put him next to Myles Garrett, and you don't even think about it.
Quincy Carrier, as always, man, great stuff. Appreciate it very much, Quincy Carrier. Thanks, buddy.
No problem. You guys have a great day.
You too. Quincy Carrier, make sure you Google him on YouTube. Has his own show. It's good stuff. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, Casey Kinnamon from Dawg Pound Daily. We'll talk more about that rookie mini camp of the Browns getting underway in Berea tomorrow. Sports for CLE. Be right back.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns. Rookie minicamp gets underway for the Browns out in Berea tomorrow. Let's welcome in Casey Kinnamon, Dawg Pound Daily. Casey, which of the rookies are you most anxious to see get on the field and just kind of get a look? It'll be the first kind of idea of what the Browns kind of want to do with some of these guys.
For me, it's a combination of Alex Wright and Perion Winfrey. I believe both those players are in line to get heavy roles if they could just hit the ground running. You know, and rookie minicamp's a great spot to get it acclimated and show the team what you're really about. And I think they could both like inject some real energy into that room and just raise the floor so that you're not always looking at Myles or Clowney. You know, you got some other guys that can get some stuff done. And I think both those guys are eligible candidates.
Yeah, and, you know, those are the good thing is those are both guys that the Browns kind of feel have really, really high ceilings as well.
Yeah, exactly. And like for someone like Wright, he's not going to be asked to do a lot right away. You got more of that tack role where he's going to come in and provide some energy and pass rush. When you got someone like Garrett on the sidelines, which, when the offense doesn't have relief, that's the stress moment. And Wright could be one of those players. And I think Winfrey's going to be in line to kind of start right away. And like I said, just give that whole room some energy. So very excited to see those two.
All right, so this is from Dog Pound Daily. 3 veteran free agents that the Browns should add before 2022 camp. They go defensive tackle. Danny Schulten was a former Browns draft pick. Wide receiver Julio Jones, and then edge rusher Melvin Ingram. Just kind of the thoughts on those 3.
Well, Shelton, I don't think that would be like a very exciting a move for them to make, but I think it'd be like a very valuable one. He would provide a skill set that defensive tackle room doesn't have. Someone that can, eat up blocks and keep the linebackers clean. So I think that would be a welcome addition to the room. With Julio Jones, man, I know people get caught up in the name, and Browns fans always kind of pine for him because they had that shot at him back in 2011. But we see wide receivers hit this wall around age 30. And for Julio, it came at age 31. And, it's 2 years in. Now it's a trend. Look at last season. He played in 10 games, had 31 receptions for 434 yards and a touchdown. Now, if that's a role player doing that, you can live with something like that. But when it's a guy you're going to, pay money and expect production, you just can't have that. And then Ingram for me is a scenario. If they're unable to bring Clowney back into the fold, I think Ingram's a fine plan C. But you can't bring Ingram in and ask him to be a role player. We saw how that played out in Pittsburgh. He could not find the door fast enough.
Yeah, that was the Mike Tomlin, we're looking for volunteers, not hostages. And he was very productive as far as snap count and sacks when he played. But, yeah, I'm with you. Clowney's probably the first pick. Also, we talked a little bit about Julio Jones. It's really starting to sound more and more, and we're hearing reports of this, like the Browns are pretty content with their wide receiver room. You concerned with that at all?
I can see where some of the concern would come from because a lot of these guys aren't proven commodities. But if you just break it down and look at the skill sets they've combined for the wide receiver room, you got Cooper, your do-it-all, de facto number 1, solid production, kind of runs everything cleanly. You got DPJ, your classic X boundary guy, chunk play. Schwartz is your prerequisite speed guy. Now, that speed hasn't proven to be effective yet, but the speed is there. 4.27 doesn't grow on trees. You're bringing Bell into the mix, who kind of seems to be in more of a mold of the Cooper. He can kind of do it all, solid, dependable. We'll have to see how he hits the ground and how he can mesh with Deshaun. But I think he's your leading candidate to be a slot guy. And you got a fun gadget guy in Jakeem Grant. So if you look at the sum of everything, you have everything in-house that you need to be successful. It just has to prove itself. So I get the concern. But from a skill set perspective, I think they're well in order. And then you got a bunch of guys competing for that 6th spot. You got Javon Wims and Jamarcus Bradley, Michael Woods, who they drafted, and my favorite for the position, Isaiah Weston. I think, if one of those guys can emerge and prove to be that bottom of the roster guy, that's going to be hugely valuable going forward. And then 1 or 2 will end up making the practice squad. That's the way it always is.
The only, and where I was going with that here, and maybe it's because I kind of watched this develop last year, if something happens and Amari Cooper misses 2, 3, 4, 5 games, that concerns me.
Yeah, that would be very concerning. Like I said, he's your de facto 1. And we kind of seen how that played out when they lost their number 1 last year. They didn't really have that guy to threaten. So that's a genuine concern, But that's all rosters are fluid like that. You're always a bad injury or a surprise cut from another team from everything changing. And I know Barry will have his eyes to the wire if someone does come available that is price effective to bring them into this fold. I could see that happening. But as of right now, I could see where their mindset is going into camp.
The other thing is, do you think kind of part of the equation between Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski is Deshaun Watson is going to make Donovan Peoples-Jones a little bit better. He's going to make Anthony Schwartz a little bit better. Heck, he's going to make David Njoku a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. And you go on down the line to the running backs as well and the other tight ends in the room. Like everyone is going to see a little bit of an easier path to getting the ball than they have in years past and being productive and being put in good positions to do so. So, yeah, it's going to get spread out all over the cast to make sure everything's effective. But the concerns are real, but depth's always like that in the NFL. You're always a bad injury away from things looking sunny to being gloomy as they can be.
Yeah, fair enough. No roster is complete by any stretch of the imagination. Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, 4 guys who are under the most pressure in their second season with the Browns. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily. All right, 4 Browns under the most pressure in their second season, the upcoming season. This again from Dog Pound Daily. They begin number 1 with James Hudson, the tackle. Played a lot last year because of injuries, had some mixed results. Second guy is Tommy Togiai, one of those young defensive tackles trying to work his way in and earn some rotational playing time. Number 3, this one's kind of interesting. Anthony Schwartz was hurt at the beginning of last year and just never kind of became the threat that I think Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry envisioned when they drafted him in the 3rd round a couple years ago. And then Demetric Felton, who had some success early and struggled a little bit. When you look at those, which one or two of those do you think is under the most pressure when you look at those names?
Well, prior to the Chris Hubbard re-signing, I would have went with James Hudson, just due to the timetable we don't know for Jack Conklin's return, plus his injury history. But with Hubbard back in the fold, I think that allows for some more developmental time for Hudson to kind of find his way. But for the offensive players, there's real pressure there, but they're different pressures. Demetric Felton's pressure is making the team. There's 5 running backs in the room. He's a former 6th-round pick. They just got relegated to strictly running back, which devalues his skill set entirely. So that's his pressure. But Anthony Schwartz's pressure is to perform. We're talking about a player, he was the 91st pick. He needs to show that speed isn't, that calling card that everyone knows him by isn't just some, random stat. He has to prove that it's something he can weaponize at the very least to dictate coverage and help his other receivers out. And if he can't do that, that speed is useless. Like I said, he's a 91st overall pick. At some point, Andrew Berry needs to see a return on that investment. So I think the most pressure is on Anthony Schwartz personally.
Fair enough. Let me ask you this, and how much pressure do you think Kevin Stefanski is under? And I've kind of poo-pooed that question when fans have brought it up with our voicemail. But you look at a guy like Matt Nagy, and there's some parallels. Matt Nagy was Coach of the Year his first year, 12-4. They went to the playoffs 2 of the 4 years he coached, but they went 12-4, 8-8, 8-8, 6-11. And again, with the way this roster is constructed, is the pressure to win real for Kevin Stefanski, do you think?
I think there's 2 ways to look at it. You look at it from a front office perspective. I don't think Kevin's really in any danger on that front. because his methods align so well with Andrew Berry's. They agree with the process. Now, of course, it's a results-driven business, so winning is paramount. But they also, what you look at like Chicago, they weren't able to develop a quarterback. Well, now with the addition of Deshaun Watson, I think that changes the equation a good bit. But there's always a wild card in Cleveland. His name is Jimmy. And Jimmy has a proclivity to listen to the mob. And, you know, where a couple games where maybe Chubb doesn't get enough carries or the offense stagnates and looks a little conservative before things can get very loud very quickly. But there's an antidote for Coach Stefanski, and it's winning. You win, you're fine. So at the end of the day, he has to win, of course. The roster that he has, the playmakers he has in place, Deshaun Watson, you know, everything being lined up, he does have to win. But I don't think the expectation is Super Bowl or bust. You know, I think they have to make a good account for themselves, make a run at the division, and at the very least make a run into the playoffs. But I'm not saying it's that fired. You know, it would have to be an abject disaster for Kevin Stefanski to be fired this year.
Yeah, it's the old Southern football coach saying, "We're right behind you, coach. Win or tie." that's kind of the fan base. All right, so the schedule comes out in three hours plus. What do you expect? Do you expect a lot of national games? Or what are you thinking, and what are you looking for in the schedule release?
It's kind of hard to tell, right? Like, you don't know how the league kind of feels about us with the Deshaun signing. Like, are they going to try to bury us so they're not constantly having to talk about us going into every primetime game? I'd say 3 is probably a realistic number. You know, I think you're going to get a Sunday night, a Monday night, and a Thursday night. I don't think, you know, now towards the end of the year, if things are going well, the Browns are a high flex, you know, team that could be in that running to be flexed, you know, on a week basis. But no, when I look at the schedule, for me, I look at it through the eyes of the players. Like, when's the bye? You want an advantageous bye. You don't want something that's too early or too late. You know, you want something somewhere in that middle ground where you can regroup if things go bad or if you're dealing with some injuries. So for me, that's the pivotal thing. Now, of course, it'd be awesome to get as close to a layup as you can in week 1. This team vitally needs to get off, you know, to a fast start. And we all know the history, and we don't need to go into 2004 against the Ravens to now. But like, I think that, you know, get a decent matchup week 1, and then where's the bye? Those are the things for me.
Do you like the idea? Reports are it's the Panthers, and that's pretty reliable. Panthers in Carolina week 1. I kind of like that. I don't think it's a layup, but it's an advantageous game. We'll leave it at that.
Yes. I love it for a few reasons. I live an hour and a half from Charlotte, so I'm all in. You know, get me there. I'll be in the stadium. But yeah, they're a team trying to find their way. You know, you don't want to go into a buzzsaw team, you know, who finished last season on all cylinders, and then, you know, we don't know how long it's going to take us to gel. We're going to kind of get to feel our way through that. But you would like to have kind of a soft opening, you know. You don't want to have to go into a bee's nest week 1, and I think Carolina would qualify. All
right, before I let you go, most underrated team on each and every one of the 32 NFL teams. This is via Pro Football Focus. This is a little bit of a surprise. For the Browns, they say Baker Mayfield. Now, he's been a disappointment, number 1, but you read it, and he looks like an NFL starter is basically what they're saying. Do you agree with that? And what are your thoughts just when the whole Baker Mayfield situation gets resolved, likely via trade?
Well, I mean, I think it's obvious the public and the league as a whole are down on Baker right now. You don't need any more evidence than the fact that he's still on the roster. You know, I think that's evidence enough. But I don't agree that he's the most underrated. I think the most underrated player on this team right now is Harrison Bryant. I think he is in a huge spot to go out this year and like make a name for himself. I think he's going to be a vital weapon, especially in the red zone for Deshaun Watson. And I think that Bryant could probably start on 10 to 15 teams in this league right now. Now, we can't say the same thing for Baker, because if he could, he wouldn't be on this team. We're hoping for 1 or 2 teams that need a quarterback to get Baker off. But Baker is, you know, he is a starting level quarterback. But what it comes down to is the juice worth the squeeze for other teams right now. And right now, they're just going to play the waiting game, the chicken game with us. But that's what Barry's doing himself. He's waiting for some quarterback to, you know, tear a hamstring, or you don't want to wish for injuries, but they happen. It's 100% in this league. Someone's going to get hurt. and then they're going to try to be opportunistic at that moment and get what they can for them. So I think our resolution comes sometime during training camp.
As always, Casey Kinnamon, Dawg Pound Daily, great stuff. Appreciate the time. Thanks very much, Casey.
Hey, not a problem. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Casey Kinnamon, make sure you read him, Dawg Pound Daily. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Scheduled guest Tim Bielek from The Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com, and Randy Gurzy from Dawg Pound Daily. It's tomorrow, 4 o'clock, Sports for CLE. We'll see you then. We will talk plenty about the Browns schedule, which is released tonight. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow.